Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you are in the world. Here on the east coast of England, it's a little bit chilly today, and we're here to talk about quite a difficult subject. So if you find the subject of abandonment challenging, I suggest that you watch this upcoming video in company. But towards the end, I'm actually going to come up with 10 different ways of handling how this abandonment creates compulsion in your lives. So there's going to be some useful information a little bit later on. But before we dive into that, there's some things that I want to explain from my own personal experience. And from my own personal experience, sorry about that, I must learn to kind of not so much ignore the phone, but ignore its noises. I've turned the volume down. So let's start again. Fear of abandonment. We're going to be looking at how this fear of abandonment, or as some people just call it, abandonment issues, which I think is a really weak way of referring to this, because this kind of fear is not weak. Yeah. But from my own personal experience of literally being abandoned as a newborn, I'll explain why. That fear can reproduce itself over and over again in your life until you stop and tackle it. And now that I have stopped and tackled it, I can now understand that this fear of abandonment is a childhood fear, is an infant fear. And it stems from the pure survival instinct and the fact, that if we are abandoned as an infant or a small child, the chances are we'll die. This comes from this hardwired survival instinct. Yeah. Your brain, the structure of your brain was put together 200,000 years ago, and is built for survival. It's not built for creating happiness or joy or fulfillment or growth or self-improvement. Yeah. It was built at a time when humans didn't have the complex language that we have now. So, as I mentioned in my post yesterday, my content post yesterday, the resolution of my own personal abandonment issues has allowed me now to stick up for myself and own my own safety by not abandoning myself in order to make someone else happy. I'm going to give a real life example, and it comes from my life. I work with many traumatized women and young people now. And I don't think it's fair to share their stories. Yeah. If they had wanted to be on this workshop and share the stories themselves, then fine. But they're not here. So the story I'm going to share is mine. In fact, we'll make it two really quick stories. The first one to explain that childhood abandonment thing, because I'm not sure I've got it in my notes to pick it up later. So what happened was I was born in the 60s when unmarried mothers were treated like dirt. Mum had to battle to keep me in order to complete all of the boxes that she had to tick in order to keep me as a 17, 18-year-old unmarried woman. One of the things she had to do was get a job which would allow her to live in that job, like an in-house job. It was like a housekeeper, mother's help kind of role, where I could live with her in a family environment. So for a short period of time, when I was very, very, very young, my mother left me in Bristol and went right across the country. If you look at England, right, you've got Bristol on one side of the country and Aldborough and the East Coast on literally the opposite side of the country. Now, I know in America, different scales and things, this is probably like 350 miles, right? So it's not across the earth, but it's across the country, to find that job, to land that job, to be interviewed for it. And that was how she created safety for me. However, that time that I was left alone, I do have some really peculiar images in my head, and feelings in my body of what happened or what didn't happen then. But a more recent story showing the recovery of that was that at the end of a very complicated but short journey of discovery, last year, I think it was, when we finally got, or it might have been the year before, very recently, anyway, it's all been a bit of a whirlwind. I discovered that the man who my mum had told me was my dad all my life, biologically, wasn't my dad. And just to show you that this man is important to me, I have his picture in my phone. So it's with me all the time, because I grew up knowing that that man, Ryan, was my dad, and that the man who was bringing me up, Bill, or mum's husband, was not my dad. But anyway, we found my biological father, yeah? And one of my newly discovered half-sisters said on a Zoom call that she was looking forward to having a chat with me one day over afternoon tea. Yeah. This was the same woman who had typed on behalf of my biological father a seriously dark and hurtful rejection letter from the man who had been proven to be my father by DNA. My body on that Zoom call said a very clear no, but it was still difficult for me to say that no out loud. I ended up having to, I think I wrote a short letter, but anyway, because when, I've learned that when I put somebody else's need to make amends over my need to respect myself, that brings back that abandonment wound, that self-abandonment. Because true abandonment can only happen when you're an infant. Once you're a grown-ass woman, right, abandonment doesn't happen. Yeah? What happens is loneliness, or what happens is isolation. But there is this thing on the edge that I can't find a word for, so I'm calling it self-abandonment. It took me a long time to understand that I have the choice. I literally have the choice to understand that abandonment only happens to babies. This is self-abandonment. This is different. Yeah. And learning to trust myself that I will not abandon myself. Yeah. So building that trust muscle in me helped me to rewrite my fear. And rewriting your fear is something that only you can do. Now, I'm just going to flick across to a different page, because as much as I love staring at my face in the mirror, I'm now going to talk about those 10 compulsions and suggestions. Yeah? These are examples of ways we as adults undermine our own right to have value, respect, our right to exist, our right to take up space. Yeah. So once you've gone through that process of realizing that abandonment cannot happen to you because you're a grown-ass woman, once you realize that the abandonment fear is actually coming from yourself, you're creating a fear. Once you acknowledge that you are the root of your own fear of abandonment, you can then take steps. And what I'm going to do is I'm just going to go up here to my list. Here we go. So the first one is the compulsive shame, and not enoughness. Yeah. The compulsion that you have, and I'm going to keep using this word compulsive, 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 because in that area where you are abandoning yourself, it becomes a compulsion to behave that way. So let's start with compulsive shame and not enoughness. The way you tackle that is focusing on rebuilding your own self-value. You focus on your achievements. Yeah? If you're the sort to keep a diary, write down your daily or weekly wins. When you do something that's an achievement, like Michelle, who's just joined us, Michelle has been walking some ridiculous distances. Last summer, she did tell us, Michelle, how many miles did you walk last summer? It was phenomenal. I didn't even realize she was winding herself up to it, but she'd been in training for months. After a personal battle, she was bouncing back with her own fitness. But she really made a point of celebrating those wins. And that's what I would encourage you to do if you find yourself in the position where you are compulsively making yourself not enough or not important. The next one is compulsive caretaking, people pleasing, seeking reward from other people. Yeah, because that's what all of those things are. Yeah, when you are compulsively doing things for other people, people pleasing is the one that I deal with most often. But as I said, there's caretaking, there's reward seeking, there's perfectionism, all of that stuff. The way to combat that is learning how to say no. I've got a really good PDF for that. Yeah, so if you want that PDF, type something appropriate below this live so that I know you want that one. The next thing is to understand when you're saying yes is enabling other people to take advantage. So it's kind of like the opposite of learning how to say no. Understanding what no means, because saying no to someone else can often mean saying yes to yourself. And understanding that when you say yes to someone else, it could be enabling them to take advantage of you. Okay. Number 3, the compulsion to be alone, isolation, compulsive self-reliance. Yeah. This is something I've done a lot of, especially in the first couple of years when my husband passed away, because so many people said, oh, if you need anything, let me know. Yeah, and I let them know, and they weren't there for me. So I then became compulsively self-reliant. But the solution to that is to celebrate yourself and learn in little individual steps to ask for help. Yeah, I was very pleased to note that a person local to me here in Rendlesham, who's taken an awful lot on, is learning how to ask for help. What's the next one? What are we up to? Are we up to number 4? Oh, we've done number 4, haven't we? That was number 5, compulsively needing to numb your feelings. This could look like binge watching Netflix, binging overeating, drinking every day, taking recreational drugs. That's my printer talking to itself. Anyway, to deal with that, you need to create ways to comfort and soothe yourself without that external validation. You need to seek out safety and warmth, family time, date night. And when you're encouraging others, especially your kids, for instance, to care for each other, include you in that. Yeah. Rather than just saying to an older sibling, oh, you're older, you should know better. Yeah. Become a 3 so that the younger child, the older child, and you all care for each other. The next one is the compulsive perfectionism, or good girl syndrome. Yeah. And the way you tackle that is to work on your inner critic. Work on the negative fear wiring that's in your brain. Yeah. Just because you're hardwired to behave that way doesn't mean you can't change it. Your brain is hardwired for you to survive, but you can choose to thrive, to learn, to grow. Yeah? If you don't make those choices, then you will just carry on this bland path of survival. Number 7, compulsively choosing unavailable people in relationships. Yeah. You know who you are. If this is you, you know who you are. You are the person who has got a thing for the bad boys. Yeah. You are the person who, for some reason, makes friends with the chattiest woman in the group. And I'm going to invite you literally to take a deep dive into who you say yes to, why you say this yes to them. Yeah. What is it that they are bringing to the relationship? I could go very deep on this one. This is a relationship coach thing. Let me have a look on the list. No, Christina's not made it today. Okay, it's not a problem. If she had, then I would ask her to jump in and talk to us about that, because she's a coach for people trying to escape toxic relationships. The next compulsion is the compulsive disassociation, known by therapists as maladaptive daydreaming. Yeah, this is when you're constantly either going off into the future spiral, by thinking about, what if this happens, what if that happens, what if something else happens, yeah, or you're spiraling back into the past, regretting and getting caught out because you look at the past and you think, oh shit, I should have done that differently. That disassociation from the present moment can simply be brought back into the present moment with intention. And I use that word quite deliberately because whenever I'm preparing for a breathwork session, I will always ask the individual or the group what intention they have, what they want to bring into that session, what they want to link up with, or what they want to release and let go. All of that can be done in breathwork. So the next compulsive one is number 9, compulsive dysregulation. This can look like those, I'm trying to think how best to describe them. It's like compulsive dysregulation is when you kind of prefer to be in that dysregulated state because you understand that. Your body knows what it's like to be totally off balance. And to be calm and quiet and in balance feels weird. Yeah. There are people, myself included, who have spent so many years with a dysregulated nervous system that just trusting and caring for my own body took years to try and figure out. But you don't have to do that. You don't have to spend years trying to figure it out because I've done it for you. Yeah? So the things you work on, if you find yourself or notice yourself getting caught up in that compulsive dysregulation, is guided visual meditations, breath works, things that allow you to rewire your negative beliefs. These beliefs are sometimes called limiting beliefs. Yeah? They're the beliefs that keep you stuck. And this stuckness can be really hard to get out of. Yeah. Unless you come to someone, like me, or there's loads of people, loads of coaches who are trauma-informed coaches who can help you deconstruct these limiting beliefs and put them back together as positive habits. That just reminds me brilliant book. Yeah, absolutely brilliant book. This is Atomic Habits by James Clear, who I have exchanged emails with. Yeah. Wonderful man. And the last one, this is the one that's most controversial, and I'm probably going to ruffle a few feathers. Like, there are two people still watching me. I don't know which two they are. But here we go. Right, put the nerves down. Compulsive hypervigilance, also known as empathy. Constantly scanning for danger. Yeah. What I know to be true is that empaths are not born. They are created, and they're created from trauma. They're created from being in an unsafe environment so much or so long or so often that the scanning for danger becomes normal. Yeah. The being able to walk into the room and know which person is dangerous. Yeah. Which person is going to cause a fight? Which person is going to be argumentative? If you're walking into a room, as I do sometimes, I walk into rooms with young people to give little talks on stress and stress management coming up to exams and stuff like that. I can walk into the room and spot which child is going to backchat me. But I can also spot which child is going to really listen, really take on board what I'm handing out. I'm not saying that empathy is a bad thing just because it comes from trauma. But that being able to tune in to other people's states, unless you do it with intention, deliberately, and unless you keep yourself safe while you're doing it, it can be really destructive. Destructive, did I say that right? And to free yourself from that compulsive hypervigilance, the way to do it is to create space for yourself. It's not necessarily time, it's space. It's an emotional space to relax your constant scanning for danger. It's putting yourself in a deliberately safe space. Now, that could be in a locked house, in a locked bathroom, in a bubble bath with your husband in the next room. Yeah. If that's what you need to feel safe and calm, great. I personally like going for a walk and taking the dog with me. That for me is my time to breathe, to meditate, to be calm, because all I'm doing in that moment is going for a walk. Nothing else. Just going for a walk. And that's how I put little punctuations, little moments of safety, moments of calm, moments of deliberate calmness. No, I've lost the word. Deliberate embodiment of what I've learned in all of these, of what I've learned by literally living a life on this planet. Yeah. Consciously learning, intentionally learning. I'm just checking for questions. There's none coming in at the moment. So that's pretty much it for my part of the workshop. I'm just going to stop the recording on there.